first part of the series, I talked about how Breath of the Wild's heightened challenge made it a better game. Today, I wanted to look at one specific gameplay element that makes the game difficult, as well as how climbing fundamentally changes how I look at this game and a ton of other open-world games. So first up, let's talk about weapons, specifically destructible weapons. The Zelda franchise is built in no small part on the satisfying, predictable weapon and item progression in each game. You always start with a simple sword, and as the game progresses, you'll gain better swords, bow and arrows, hookshots, bombs, and a whole host of other items that enable you to progress through the game. You very rarely regress in what items you have, and the game is built specifically to take advantage of the items that you earn along the way. Breath of the Wild is different in that you will not have a linear progression in items earned through the game. And even more jarring, you won't even get to hold on to any single weapon for a very long time at all. See, almost every item and weapon you get in Breath of the Wild is destructible. Not only that, they're very destructible and fall apart in dozens of swings in the case of most weapons. And because, why not, there's also no real system in the game to fix your broken or worn down weapons. Basically, don't get too attached to anything because it's going to be gone pretty quick after you start using it. I should hate this feature. Every single RPG I've played in my life that has this sort of gameplay element, I've hated. It's a testament to this game that it makes me enjoy this mechanic as much as it actually does. Ironically, the thing that I think makes the feature work for me is that items break so quickly after you start using them. If I decide to take on a whole hangout of goblins, I will very likely go through 2 or 3 weapons. When you're blowing through your inventory that fast, it's hard to build an emotional connection with any specific piece of gear. Instead, you start to learn what types of weapons you enjoy using, whether they be two-handed broadswords or small knives that you can fight quickly with. So, while a specific sword may break in the middle of a fight, odds are pretty good that I'll pick up something in the same category and be able to use it in a similar way in no time. It's a pretty smooth transition. And that trust that the game is going to get me a weapon that I like pretty soon after I lose one that I like really saves the game. I don't know what sort of quasi-random logic the game has going on behind the scenes, but it does a really good job of making sure that the weapons you're picking up from enemies are a good mix of all weapon types. I feel like no matter what I do when I play the game, I'll always have some weaker, quick weapons, as well as some larger and heavier, but slower, moving weapons. My problem with this mechanic in other games is that it makes me feel like I have to play conservatively to make my stuff last as long as possible, as I'm afraid of losing my favorite weapon, or worse, finding myself without a way to defend myself because all my stuff is broken. Because Breath of the Wild ensures I always have weapons at my disposal and never makes me cherish the weapons I have too much, I quickly found the mechanic didn't bother me in the slightest. With over 150 unique weapons I can pick up in the game, there's no shortage of cool stuff you can get as well. But I brought up this mechanic in terms of making the game more difficult, and that's absolutely true as well, despite me enjoying it overall. The obvious limitation here is that you can't just get some really powerful weapon and then use it the rest of the game. All your weapons are going to break down in the middle of fights, so you need to learn to switch weapons and fighting styles in the middle of battle. The game shows an alert 1 or 2 swings before your weapon breaks, and you can either keep swinging until it falls apart in your hands, or you can throw it at an enemy and it'll do extra damage if you land the hit. It's a cool mechanic that adds a bit of risk-reward to each weapon's final moments, since the extra damage is really tempting, but you're also more likely to miss a throw and lose the weapon for good. This all adds up to a mechanic that, by all accounts, should make me hate the game, but it made me love it. I'd be interested to see a Breath of the Wild 2 where you play with a more traditional set of items that never break, but in this game, Nintendo plays this mechanic incredibly well. Before we end the segment, I wanted to bring up one more thing, and that's climbing. Climbing in video games is nothing new, of course, but Nintendo made a game where flat out everything is climbable. Games like Assassin's Creed let you climb, but only in predefined places and only on predefined paths. It turns out that when you let people climb on literally any solid surface, it changes everything. There is no surface in Hyrule too steep for Link to climb. What this means for gameplay is that there's no wall that's impossible to get past. Some of the greatest joys of playing this game are the moments where you see a mountain peak that you want to reach and aren't sure if you can make it with your current stamina meter. but you find a clever path and maybe mess with the game's physics a little bit to make it work. But you get to the top and it's just the best feeling. Climbing is technically just pushing in a certain direction on the control stick, but that just moves the strategy to how you're going to navigate where you want to go. Where are you going to start the climb? Are there rest points along the way where you can regain stamina? Is there a less steep path where you could burn stamina slower? These are the questions you'll ask yourself, and it's extraordinarily rewarding when a plan comes together. Sometimes you'll find a way up somewhere that you're pretty sure the game didn't want you to get yet, but you outsmarted it. This single mechanic is a big reason that my suggestion for new players is to spend your shrine orbs on stamina upgrades first. You're going to be tempted by increasing your maximum health, but stamina upgrades will let you climb longer and higher, and that will help you get further early on in the game than a little more health will ever do. And that is it for this part in the series. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like it if you did, and make sure that you subscribe so you know when the third and final part is released. Thank you so much for watching.